I'm pretty thankful to be working with somebody like you on our motorcycle accident cases, because when somebody calls me, I'm talking to them on the phone. I have no way of sizing them up as a person. I'm not out at the scene, but one of the first things that I do is email you or I call you up and I say, hey, I got this accident and, I really got to jump on it. But there are some times that you've come back to me and said, this is not a case. This is totally fraudulent. And I, as a lawyer and as a person, I don't want to get involved in it, but I really do count on, you and your skills to ferret out this fraud so it doesn't really go any farther than it has to.
What I like to do before I even talk to anyone, to a potential client of yours, is one, look at the police reports if they're available, look at the situation, actually go there and walk it, see, how it could have happened, etc. Does it match what the police report is saying? And I do this with every potential client of yours. I take a look at the client. I take a look at their background a little bit and see, is this a recurring situation? Are they particularly litigious? That's just who I am. I'm curious. I want to know who I'm looking at, what I'm looking at. By the time I give you, the information that I uncover, I need to make sure that it's as verifiable as possible.
All the marks of an excellent investigator, I must say, and I'm sure everybody out there will agree with me.
Welcome to Riding Counsel with Rich Jaffe, where the open road meets expert advice. I'm Richard Jaffe, an attorney and biking enthusiast, and this is the podcast where we dive into the world of motorcycling, safety, culture, charitable giving, and riding right. So, whether you're a seasoned rider or just getting started, let's talk bikes, the road, and everything in between. Let's ride!
All right. Hello, everyone out there in Riding Counsel podcast land. I'm your host, Richard Jaffe, and I am a podcaster. I am a motorcycle enthusiast, and I am a personal injury attorney, mostly handling motorcycle accident cases here at ridingcounsel.com. If this is your first time listening to us, welcome, and thanks a lot for listening to the show. And if you're a repeat listener, thank you for listening and welcome back. And everybody, please do me a favor. It takes about 3 seconds. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, because I really try to get some helpful information out to all motorcycle riders, all bikers, and it's something that we can all use. Today, I wanted to share with you a really important guest and somebody who's pretty amazing, at least in my eyes. She's pretty amazing, and she's going to tell all of you about herself, and I'm sure you'll be equally as impressed about how amazing she is. And her name is Lena, and welcome, Lena, to the show. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, Rich. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So Lena, who are you? Give us the 411. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
Okay. Lena Maini, and I'm the founder of Beacon Network Investigations. And in fact, this is our 20th year. I founded Beacon Network Investigations, BNI for short, in 2005. I'm a native New Yorker, New York City and Long Island. And after the Air Force, I got into investigations.
All right. Well, I thank you for your service in the Air Force. Tell us a little bit about what your Air Force career was about. Tell us what was it? What was it like?
Interestingly enough, it actually prepared me for the investigative field without my even having planned it. I went in when I was 18. I had my choice between the NYPD and the Air Force. My brother was already in the Air Force. So I took the tests for both and scored very high. And when it came time, I went into the Air Force and just absolutely loved the experience. I was initially in engineering, which really helped me out a lot later, with investigations. And then also in investigations while I was in.
This episode has been brought to you by Riding Counsel. Don't forget to visit us at ridingcounsel.com.
So you're an investigator, and there's a lot of people out there, at least that I find as an attorney, that say, hey, I'm an investigator. I can, go investigate accidents and do all kinds of crazy things. But, that's really not an investigator. I mean, what is it about you that as an investigator that really differentiates you from, these posers on the street that say, yeah, I'm an investigator?
This is something that my family has told me that I had started saying I was going to do when I was about 5 or 6 years old, going into the library, pulling out all these little children's books with detectives and investigators. I'm not sure what actually makes one an investigator, other than you really have to have a good sense of curiosity, and you have to have a lot of follow through. You can't. What makes a good investigator is someone who does their homework. From the beginning, of a case, following it all the way through. There are no pat answers. Each situation is very different. Each case is very different, and you just have to have that mentality. As I said, to see it all the way through.
I would think that, there's a couple of things to consider. First is like evidence, right? Maybe a piece of broken glass or some wood or something like that. But then, part of the investigation is talking to witnesses or people. And you probably have to have a good sense of who's really lying and who's not. I mean, how do you sense who might be lying and who really might be telling the truth?
Well, that comes with experience, and with time and experience. But I think you have to sort of position yourself into, before you interview a witness, you should actually have an understanding of the basics of the accident or the incident, whatever has occurred. And when you're interviewing a witness, there are certain physical tells with witnesses, and especially when I interview people, I tend to ask the same question a little bit down the road, a little bit differently. If I'm getting a different story, if the facts are not lining up, sometimes with the literal physics of a situation, of an accident investigation, there are clues that the witnesses actually give off themselves. So you kind of have to be really attuned to that, and have, again, being able to place yourself in that situation and see if it makes logical sense.
Yeah, so there's also other kinds of evidence out there that you kind of suggest, the physical evidence. But I mean, you must have you're doing this for a couple of decades now, which is amazing. Congratulations on that. And you must be doing something right to be doing it and in business for so long. I certainly know that because here at Riding Counsel, we exclusively use your investigative services, and I'm proud to say that. But you know, you must have investigated motorcycle accident cases before doing work with us. Is that right?
Absolutely. In fact, my first 2 years of BNI, of investigative work, I was actually trained. My brother was also, once he got out of the Air Force, he was also city law enforcement. So he knew a lot of people. And he introduced me to a couple of detectives over at Highway 3 in Queens, NYPD. So I learned really from the ground up, how accidents, motor vehicle, motorcycle, cars, and even some aviation investigations, how to really investigate, not, just coming up with some sort of plan. I actually took courses with the Police Management Institute, Florida, the same that Highway 3 goes through. And so I was very fortunate. For the first 2 years, I had great training detectives.
Yeah, so I personally find that motorcycle accident cases can be really intricate. There's a lot of times there's something special or something small that you really have to pay attention to find out the cause of an accident or whether somebody's telling the truth or not. What are some of the little things you think are important to look at when it comes to motorcycle accident investigations?
When you're looking at the overall picture,
Mhm.
motorcyclists only comprise 3% of all motor vehicles on the road. Yet they comprise 14%, of all fatalities. So that's a large, discrepancy there. It's not a matter of any one real small factor. In a motorcycle investigation, you have to look at the overall picture. Where was the, both drivers? Mostly motorcycle accidents occur. You have two vehicles, one usually a car or SUV, some sort, and the motorcycle. you have to look at the entire picture. Who was traveling where, time, conditions, everything like that. Small factors, I wouldn't call them small, but they are important. Take a look at the driver records on both. Are we looking at experience? Does anybody have a background of being in accidents, being careless, being reckless? So there's that. There's the gear. Is the motorcyclist, is he ready for the road? Conditions on the road are very different, as you know, from driving a vehicle. Things that normally wouldn't affect an individual in a car or an SUV will impact the motorcyclist. Anything from weather conditions to a pothole, which a car can easily go over. A motorcyclist, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's a real important point. Oftentimes, especially in the New York City metropolitan area, while I'm riding, there's plates in the road where they're doing construction, and a lot of times the municipalities, whether it be the city, the county, the state, they don't make that smooth transition between the big construction plate and the road. So you really got to be careful. And a lot of times there's no signs because everybody just thinks cars go by for some reason, but motorcycles are part of the road too.
And that's true. Motorcycle accidents in urban settings tend to be a bit easier to investigate than those out clearly on a highway, on the open road. But you're right. There's a lot going on in a city setting, in an urban setting, that if you're in a vehicle, it's not going to affect you. But a motorcycle, yeah, it's going to have a profound effect.
What I do, I ride a Harley Davidson Road Glide, right? It's a pretty big bike,
Nice.
It's meant for touring, and I could put things on it, right? So, if I want to put a nice windshield on there or have some crash bars on there, and that's all well and good. And a lot of people, what they do when they ride my kind of bike is they put a GoPro or some sort of camera on there and they film things. And I'm seeing that more and more on a lot of the other bikes too. It could be, a sport bike or a racing bike or something like that. And I'm wondering, what role does the GoPro footage play in the investigation that you conduct?
Well, to begin with, hopefully, if you're using a GoPro or any sort of helmet camera, that it has been properly mounted. Sometimes you have people who just strap it on and they think, okay, this is great, not realizing it's going to, it may cause a situation with the helmet itself. GoPro, yeah, anything that has video footage is always helpful. So a situation about 2 weeks ago in Queens, I don't know if you heard about that, where it was a road rage situation, and a motorcyclist is getting off the LIE into Queens, and this vehicle, BMW SUV, was just following and being persistent, and unfortunately, the motorcyclist, he ran him over. They were able to get some footage from the GoPro, but it was a fatality. So,
Yeah.
That was a horrible situation, but the camera, the footage helped.
Yeah, that's it was a real terrible event, and
Yes.
unfortunately that happens more and more with the road rage. And I don't think it's ever worth it. If you're a motorcyclist or you're in a car, it's just not worth getting that angered over to cause an accident or even a death of somebody. It's just really terrible. So
Not only
we all have
that,
to
but
watch out for them.
motorcyclists are also, clearly they don't have the security of being in a vehicle, so they're an immediate target with road rage to be severely injured, if not worse.
Another issue that I find when people call me for accident cases, and it's not just motorcyclists, it's not just people who are driving a car, but there seems to be a lot of fraudulent accidents out there. And I don't know, maybe these people have nothing to do, or maybe they're just bored or something like that. I don't know why, but they make up accidents and they make up injuries and they go to doctors and they think they're going to be millionaires. But it's not something that I think is so hidden that it can be hidden for so long. And I think it's easier to uncover such fraudulent accidents and happenings now more than ever. Do you have a feeling on what to do when you're sensing fraud?
Well, it depends, and we have encountered it quite often. It's unfortunate that I have to say that, but it's true. And including with motorcycle accidents. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, how would that occur? It's a motorcycle. What can go wrong? Well, there are incidents with motorcycle accident fraud where a motorcyclist will throw himself, a car is parking, let's say, and he throws himself in that situation where he knows he's going to get hit by that vehicle. It's, you really have to. The one good thing is a lot of cars in general now have cameras front and back. That helps. But you, again, with fraud, it really is fairly prevalent, and especially in urban settings. It's not a matter of people don't have anything to do. They think that's a quick way to make a dollar.
That's why I'm pretty thankful to be working with somebody like you on our motorcycle accident cases, because when somebody calls me, I'm talking to them on the phone. I have no way of sizing them up as a person. I really am not out at the scene, but one of the first things that I do is I email you or I call you up and I say, hey, I got this accident and I really got to jump on it. And you always respond so quickly. But there are some times that you've come back to me and said, this is not a case. This is totally fraudulent. And I, as a lawyer and as a person, I don't want to get involved in it, but I really do count on, you and your skills to ferret out this fraud, so it doesn't really go any farther than it has to.
When I meet your clients, your prospective clients in the field, yes, I'm sizing them up. I'm looking, again, what I like to do before I even talk to anyone, to a potential client of yours, is one, look at the police reports if they're available. Look at the situation. Actually, go there and walk it. See, how it could have happened, etc. Does it match what the police report is saying? But there's a good percentage where the police report doesn't really line up. But it's the responding officer. It's not like he witnessed the accident. And then, and I do this with every potential client of yours, I take a look at the client. I take a look at their background a little bit and see, is this a recurring situation? Are they particularly litigious? That's just who I am. I'm curious. I want to know who I'm looking at, what I'm looking at. And by the time I give you, the information that I uncover, I need to make sure that it's as verifiable as possible.
All the marks of an excellent investigator, I must say, and I'm sure everybody out there will agree with me. So I wonder, actually, out there, a question for the audience: have you ever been in a motorcycle accident case where you hired your own investigator? Make some comments below. Let me know, because I'm curious how that investigation played out and what kind of role it played. But getting back to what we're talking about is motorcycle accidents, and there seems to be a lot of different kinds of causes for motorcycle accident cases. And obviously I don't want anybody to be in an accident, but what are some of the more common causes of motorcycle accidents that you've seen out there?
Okay. Topping the list is driver inattention. That's, when you have, as in most cases, a two-vehicle collision, motorcycle and a motor vehicle. So that's driver inattention. Next is driver inexperience. Next is road conditions, line of sight, things like that. Also coming in, unfortunately, is drunk driving. The reaction time is considerably slower. So I would say those are the top reasons that accidents occur that we investigate.
It's amazing to me that even in this day and age where we have things like Uber and Lyft available, that people still drink and drive, whether that be in a car or on a motorcycle. It's just so easy to avoid DWI, and it really could be deadly. It's crazy to me.
A lot of them are, and you would think that makes sense. That's why you also see that tends to be younger drivers, often with having they don't know how much alcohol they can hold, which is basically none if you're going to drive, and they get into situations. It's also difficult when we're dealing with motorcycle accidents and there's a drunk driving situation that has occurred, in that, we want to know from my perspective, not only did, okay, the incident occurred, the accident occurred, potentially the drunk driver's probably cited, if not arrested right on the spot, arrested on the spot usually. But I'm always curious as to where was that drunk driver? Where was he drinking in the first place? You know,
Like,
that's a
why were they
huge
serving him?
factor.
Why were they right? Why were they serving him so much alcohol to get him drunk and like see him that he's going to get into a vehicle and drive? Why are you serving him? Why are you serving him?
Exactly, and unfortunately, what's happening here a lot is that people who are cited with DUIs, they're advised to take a plea deal. They admit to being, driving under the influence, and then the police investigation has to stop right there. Once the plea deal, is accepted by the DA, that's it. They don't go any further than that. They can't go back. The investigation's closed. So we don't know where
Yeah.
they were drinking often.
And you can't stop the cause, I mean, what's the point? You want to stop the cause of all the other drink DWIs that are coming out of that same bar or wherever they're serving them. But yeah, I guess that's really an impossible situation that hopefully it will be addressed. So, other causes that I've seen personally are roadside or road design cases where
Mhm.
sometimes there's like a hairpin turn or there's something that's coming up right after a small hill, so the line of sight, it's just not there, so you don't know what's coming up. Have you seen any of those kinds of cases?
Actually, yes, we had. I had a case a few years ago. It was upstate New York. There was a bicycle marathon going on, and the producers had basically they hired their own road monitors. It was like a 27-mile bike ride situation, and they allegedly trained these road monitors who have no business directing traffic. Unfortunately, at one point, there were two road monitors. It was a hill, just like you're saying. Uh, one road monitor positioned herself at the bottom of the hill, and the other one on the other side at the bottom of that hill. Motorcyclist is coming over. He has no idea. They're stopping traffic on this end. It's backing all the way up. He could not see what was coming up to him, and he went over and smacked right into a stopped vehicle and was severely injured.
Oh,
So,
oh,
there's that situation when you have human involvement. But there are, conditions too, where line of sight is an issue, road design, and then weather affects that as well.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, you and I, we've handled quite a few cases together. I'm wondering if any other cases that you've worked on involving motorcycles come to mind that might be memorable to you.
there was one that was really interesting. A motorcyclist, and he had a passenger with him behind him. This occurred behind Kennedy Airport in Queens, and he was traveling on this road, and he insisted he and his the person riding with him insisted that they had hit a huge bump in the road. This was on Brookville Avenue behind Kennedy Airport, and
Hmm.
that caused him to crash. He was injured, and we went to look, of course, and we're looking at the road, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there, but he kept insisting. And I'm saying to myself, if this was, it's not like it was a little pothole or this was a small situation. They were severely injured. So I said, I have to see what the traffic is like. First thing I did was research to see if that road had been listed as a dangerous road in Queens, and it had been. So I was curious as to how this alleged bump in the road, a huge, disruption in the road, that disappeared. So we sat out there for a couple of days and traced it back to a concrete company, with the concrete trucks that are rolling.
Right,
And
right.
what they were doing is dropping concrete on the road, and it was forming clearly, into these big mounds that harden. And then they would have somebody go behind like a few hours later and try to remove all of that concrete from the road.
Wow, it's so bizarre.
It was
How do you think
so
that's
crazy because, I mean, who thinks of this? Oh, let's drop the concrete everywhere and then let's go remove it. And it was just it's patience. And I said this has to. They're both swearing, both the writer and the person with him swearing up and down that this thing existed. And the way they were describing it, it can't just disappear.
wow, it never ceases to amaze me, but good for you. Believe in the people who are hurt and, swearing. Look, they ran into something and, that must have taken a lot of patience and a lot of determination to find out the exact cause. So good for you. I know I'm very happy to work with you because you do such an amazing job. But you're not only in New York. I hear you're kind of expanding the areas of where you work. Tell us a little bit about that.
We're opening, have opened in Florida, and also in Tennessee. We have a small satellite office going there. I think the intention here, hopefully, is to open a branch along the Eastern Seaboard.
Oh, that's
And these are
amazing.
the people who are with me have been with me since most of them at over 10 years. And with BNI, we only work with professionals, law enforcement and military, who have a background in investigations.
So when we're hiring you, we're not getting like a fly by night kind of situation. We're getting people who are experienced that actually are knowledgeable about what to do. And, if it's something that happens and there's a tie in between New York and Florida or another state, it sounds like you can handle it.
There is the New York Florida corridor is quite busy. It's a lot of things that start out in New York end up in Florida. And that's why we made that decision to do that. And also, we also like to have a variety of people working. Sometimes we're going to have the more experienced, the older detectives. I call them detectives. That's what they do, detect. And then we have the younger techie guys and girls come in. And, it makes for a really nice group that's not only coordinated, but knowledgeable. And everyone is learning from each other. So it's sort of an evergreen situation.
It sounds like you got a lot of good connections that you can actually cut through so much of the red tape and you can get things done as opposed to just starting out like a civilian or something like that, going asking a simple question to like a precinct. It really sounds like you can cut through and get results.
Well, cutting through is one thing. You just have to stay focused and understand where you're going with the investigation, although you just jump to conclusions. So it's a matter of keeping an eye on a bouncing ball sometimes.
So a lot of problems arise, I know, when somebody is involved, whether as somebody who is making a claim or even as a defendant or a private witness or something like that, where they might speak a different language, a language other than English. Do you have the ability to communicate with these people at BNI?
We do. I speak several languages myself. Italian, English is my second language, so that's why I put it in that order. Spanish, and I'm learning Hebrew now. We have also people on board who speak Russian. But where I'm moving to is something that I noticed in the military, where they have soldiers would wear on their wrist, translators that in real time, there's barely any gap, response gap. Nowadays with translators on everyone's phones, there's no reason why we can't communicate in any language. I think it was you who asked me if we had someone who spoke Cajun Creole, and I asked you if it was Haitian or Louisiana.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I said, sure.
Wow. So, I mean, look, there's no stopping you. And I know I'm not the only person who uses you, but I'm sure after listening, if there's anybody like me who needs an investigator, they're going to want somebody like you. How do we find you? How do we like request an investigation and find out more about you? Tell us where to find you.
Okay. First, let me say something very importantly. We do not work for the general public. We only work for attorneys, corporate counsel, and then law enforcement. We lend a hand when needed. So to find us, just go to it's Beacon Network Investigations. No one's going to say that. So our website is bniinvestigations.com. So that's 2 I's back to back. Again, BNI, that's Bravo Nancy Ida, investigations.com. Call our main number, 347-443-1737. That's it.
Okay, amazing. And I'm going to put all that for everybody watching on YouTube. I'm going to put all that information below where I'm pointing to all that stuff below, if that's okay with you, Lena.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If one of my fellow attorneys needs you, or somebody who you already mentioned, but you've given us a lot of really insightful pieces of information about motorcycle accidents and how they occur, some of the causes, and what's done like behind the scenes that you don't really see. But obviously, after listening to this podcast, it takes somebody talented and experienced like yourself to actually get done what needs to be done. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's a lot of your time, and I appreciate that.
No, thanks for having me, Rich. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And just to get word out there, people, just be careful. Don't just look at the vehicle ahead of you. Pay attention what's coming up on your sides and behind you. That's really important.
Yeah, head on a swivel, and dress for the slide, not the ride. So all you fashionistas out there, you got to protect yourselves. Okay, make sure you got protective gear on. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of ridingcounsel.com. And again, I'm your host, Richard Jaffe. I am a podcaster. I am a personal injury attorney handling lots of motorcycle accident cases. And I am here with you at ridingcounsel.com, ridingcounsel.com. You can always get in contact with me if you need to get in contact with Lena as well. But until the next episode, I want everybody to stay wild, stay free, but, in a legal way. Thanks, everybody.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Riding Counsel with Richard Jaffe. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the ride, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow riders. Until next time, keep the rubber side down and ride safe.